In a small village in Nigeria, there is a 28-year-old graduate named Badego. Badego was a hard-working young man. He had always dreamed of a better life, one where his family didn't have to struggle to make ends meet. His days were spent working on his friend Fabi's poultry farm, where he helped feed the chickens and clean the coops. The work was hard and monotonous and not a good paid job, but Badego took pride in it, knowing that he was contributing to his family's survival. On a sweltering afternoon, as he sat under a large palm tree to catch his breath, Badego's thoughts wandered to his dreams. He longed for a day when he wouldn't have to worry about where the next meal would come from. As he sat lost in thought, a man named Jimmy approached him. Jimmy, who drives a Mercedes-Benz car, was known around the village for his mysterious connections and stories of wealth. "Badego, you seem troubled," Jimmy said, sitting down beside him. "What's on your mind?" Badego sighed. "It is just the same old story. I want a better life for my family. This farm work, it barely keeps us afloat." Jimmy nodded sympathetically. "I understand. But you know, there is someone I think you should meet. A man who might be able to help you change your fortunes." Badego looked at Jimmy, intrigued but cautious. "Who is this man?" "His name is Alfa," Jimmy explained. "He's known for his spiritual abilities. He has helped many people, including myself, to achieve great wealth." Badego was skeptical at first, but desperation has a way of clouding judgment. "Alright, Jimmy. I'll meet him. What do I have to lose?" A few days later, Badego found himself standing in front of the Alfa's shrine. The place exuded an eerie aura, with various spiritual objects scattered around. Alfa, an imposing figure with an air of authority, welcomed him. Badego explained his plight, and Alfa listened intently. "I can help you," Alfa said finally. "But you must be willing to follow my instructions carefully. There are two paths: the Osole, which uses plants and animals, and the Oso, which requires human parts. Osole is safer but less effective." Badego felt a chill at the mention of human parts. "I want nothing to do with human parts," he said firmly. "I'll take the Osole." Alfa nodded. "Very well. You must pay 12,000 naira for the materials and return in 4 days." Badego did as instructed, and 4 days later, he returned to the shrine. Alfa handed him a small black soap and gave specific instructions. "Rub palm oil on your body before bathing with this soap at a flowing river. If you don't, you will disappear forever." Badego followed the instructions meticulously. He felt a strange mix of hope and fear as he bathed in the river, praying for a better future. When he returned to Alfa, he was given more materials: a soap to use every morning at 4 a.m., a potion to swallow daily after his bath, and a powdery mixture to lick every night before bed. "Endure the initial hardship, and wealth will follow," Alfa assured him. Encouraged by Alfa's promises, Badego quit his job on the poultry farm. He believed that the spiritual practices would soon bear fruit, lifting him out of poverty. However, without a steady income from the farm, Badego's financial situation quickly deteriorated. He found himself deeper in debt and struggling to support his family. His life became a grueling routine. He woke up at 4 a.m. daily to use the soap, swallow the bitter potion, and lick the powdery mixture each night. His faith in Alfa's promises was his only anchor. However, as predicted, Badego's situation worsened. His financial struggles deepened, and his health deteriorated. The initial months were filled with hardship, yet Badego clung to the hope that the tide would eventually turn. On an evening, as Badego sat on the edge of his bed, he heard a knock at his door. It was Zandu. Zandu was a former classmate who had fallen on hard times as well, but seemed to have found a way out. "Badego, I have someone you need to meet," Zandu said, his voice filled with excitement. "There is a wealthy client of mine who's been defrauded several times. He's looking for someone to help him recover his money. This could be your chance." Desperation clouded Badego's judgment. He agreed to take up the assignment. When he spoke with the man, he quickly realized how easily he could manipulate him. The man was gullible, desperate for someone to help him recover his lost wealth. Badego, driven by his own desperation, began to siphon money from the man. The ease with which he gave me money implies he's been hypnotized. I think the Osol is finally working, Badego thought. The money started flowing in, and for a brief moment, Badego felt a sense of relief. The money Badego received brought temporary relief, but Alfa was not satisfied. He advised Badego to return for an upgrade of the ritual, demanding 450,000 naira for a more potent soap that would bring millions of naira. The request made Badego uneasy, but the lure of immense wealth was too strong to resist. Zandu, sensing Badego's hesitation, sternly warned him against the upgrade. Once you bathe with the upgraded soap, you can only wear one set of clothes and shoes for the next 2 years, Zandu cautioned. Despite the warning, Badego decided to proceed. He paid the Alfa and began the new ritual. As promised, his wealth increased, but he was bound to a single set of clothes and shoes, raising suspicions among his family and friends. For 2 years, Badego endured the whispers and questions, watching his wealth grow. As the ritual period ended, the flow of money began to dwindle. His financial empire started to crumble, and desperation set in once again. Confusion and panic gripped Badego as his wealth began to vanish. His once thriving income dried up, and the money that had flowed so freely started to disappear. In a state of growing desperation, he returned to the Alpha seeking answers. The Alpha's response was chilling. There is nothing more to be done with Osol. If you want to regain your wealth, you must now do also. Badego felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. You mean? Human parts? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The Alpha nodded solemnly. It is the only way to secure the wealth you desire. Faced with the prospect of losing everything, Badego felt trapped. He was caught in a web of his own making, and the only escape seemed to be through the darkest of deeds. His first assignment was unthinkable: kill his beautiful girlfriend and bring her parts to the Alpha. The decision tore at Badego's soul, but desperation drove him forward. He lured his girlfriend to a secluded spot, his heart pounding with guilt and fear. As he committed the heinous act, he felt a piece of himself die with her. Returning to the Alpha with the gruesome offering, Badego felt a hollow victory. He had secured the wealth he so desperately sought, but at what cost? His actions haunted him, and his once vibrant spirit was now shadowed by darkness. With the blood money flowing in, Badego's lifestyle changed dramatically. He bought expensive cars, luxurious clothes, and flashy jewelry. He threw lavish parties and was often seen with different women. The village buzzed with gossip about his sudden wealth, and Badego reveled in the attention. His parents, however, were deeply troubled. Each time Badego visited them in his expensive cars, their worry grew. Where is this money coming from? His mother would ask, her voice filled with concern. Badego brushed off her questions with vague answers, but the look in his parents' eyes haunted him. Despite the outward show of wealth, Badego's nights were filled with nightmares. He saw the faces of those he had killed, their eyes accusing and filled with sorrow. He tried to drown his guilt in alcohol and distractions, but nothing could erase the horror of his actions. The Alpha's demands grew more frequent and more gruesome. Each new request pushed Badego further into darkness. He was now a regular visitor to the shrine, each visit marked by a new act of violence. The Alpha seemed insatiable, and Badego's conscience was eroded with each life he took. On a late night, driven by a desperate need for answers, Badego visited the Alpha without an appointment. As he approached the shrine, he saw the Alpha exchanging body parts for a huge amount of money with a wealthy businessman. The sight filled him with a cold dread. He realized that the Alpha was profiting immensely from his crimes. Badego confronted the Alpha. "What is this? You never told me about this." Badego shouted, his fists clenched in frustration. The Alpha regarded him calmly. "Calm yourself, Badego," he said, his voice smooth and composed. "There are many things you do not understand, many things you were never meant to understand until now. In that moment, Badego realized the horrifying truth: it had all been a setup. Jimmy, Zandu, and even the wealthy man who paid him money, they were all part of the Alpha's elaborate scheme to ensnare him. This means there was no Oso or Oso, just killing people and selling their body parts. The body parts are sold to some rich organ traffickers for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and a small part of the money were given or credited to Badego's account by unknown individuals. The Alpha had orchestrated everything, manipulating Badego into committing unspeakable acts. This is the price of wealth, Badego. You chose this path, Alpha said, a sinister smile playing on his lips. As the Alpha turned away, Badego's rage boiled over. I won't let you get away with this, he vowed. I will expose you for what you are. The Alpha looked back at him, his eyes cold and unfeeling. You can try, Badego. But remember, the path you walk is one I have laid out for you. Every step you take, every move you make, is part of my design. Badego left the shrine that night, his mind a whirlwind of rage and betrayal. He knew now that he was nothing more than a tool for the Alpha's game. He knew what he had to do, and it would end with blood. The Alpha had turned him into a monster, but Badego would be the one to bring the monster down. Badego's rage festered as the days passed. He felt used, betrayed, and increasingly consumed by guilt. Despite the wealth, his soul was tormented. The faces of those he had killed haunted his dreams, and the lavish lifestyle he once reveled in now seemed hollow and meaningless. On an early morning, as he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Badego made a decision. He would confront the Alpha once more, not just to talk but to end this madness. He couldn't continue living with the blood on his hands, and the Alpha needed to pay for his deception. As the sun rose, Badego armed himself with the tools of his grim trade, a sharp knife and a small handgun he had acquired for protection. He dressed inconspicuously and headed toward the shrine. It was still dark when Badego arrived at the Alpha's shrine. He moved silently, his heart pounding in his chest. As he approached, he saw the Alpha in a clandestine meeting with a wealthy politician. The politician handed over a large sum of money, and in exchange, the Alpha passed him a package wrapped in cloth. Badego's blood ran cold. He knew what was in that package: more human parts, harvested from his victims. His grip tightened on the knife as he stepped forward, ready to confront the Alpha once and for all. But before he could make his move, the forest around the shrine came alive with movement. Badego realized too late that he was not alone. The wealthy politician had hired police escorts who had been hiding in the shadows, waiting for any threat. In an instant, Badego was surrounded, his weapons useless against the trained officers. He was tackled to the ground, his hands roughly cuffed behind his back. The Alpha watched with a serene smile, as if he had anticipated this moment all along. Badego was dragged to a police vehicle, the reality of his situation sinking in. He had failed to bring justice to the Alpha and now faced the consequences of his own actions. The ride to the station was a blur of lights and sirens, his mind racing with thoughts of his family and the life he had destroyed. At the police station, Badego was interrogated. Under the harsh lights and relentless questioning, he broke down and confessed everything. He told the officers about the Alpha, the rituals, the murders. His voice cracked with emotion as he recounted the horrors he had committed and the betrayal he had experienced. The officers were shocked by the extent of his crimes, but their focus remained on Badego. Despite his detailed confession, the Alpha remained untouchable, protected by his connections and the politician's influence. Badego's trial was swift and highly publicized. His story captivated the nation, a chilling tale of desperation, greed, and dark rituals. The courtroom was packed, and the media coverage was relentless. As he stood in the dock, Badego faced the judge, his heart heavy with regret. His lawyer did what he could, but the evidence was overwhelming. Badego's own admissions sealed his fate. He was found guilty on multiple counts of murder and conspiracy to commit murder. The judge's voice was firm as he delivered the sentence. Badego, for your heinous crimes, you are hereby sentenced to death by hanging. In the weeks leading up to his execution, Badego was moved to a solitary cell. His days were spent in contemplation and prayer, seeking some measure of peace before the end. He found solace in the prisoner's chapel, where Pastor John continued to offer guidance and support. God forgives those who truly repent, Pastor John reminded him. It is never too late to seek redemption. Badego clung to these words, hoping for forgiveness for the lives he had taken. He also continued to write letters, sharing his story and warning others about the dangers of greed and the false promises of quick wealth. The night before his execution, Badego had a dream. He was back at the Alfa's shrine, but this time he was not alone. The spirits of his victims surrounded him, their faces filled with sorrow but also with forgiveness. They touched his hand, and he felt a warmth spread through him. When he awoke, he felt a sense of peace. He knew what he had to do. He asked Pastor John to deliver a final message to his family. Tell them I am sorry. Tell them I love them and hope they can forgive me. I don't want them to see me die. The day of Badego's execution dawned grey and somber. He woke early, spending his final hours in prayer with Pastor John. The guards came for him, and he walked to the gallows with a sense of calm resignation. As he stood on the platform, the noose placed around his neck, Badego looked up at the sky and whispered one last prayer. The trapdoor opened, and his life came to an end. In the days that followed, Pastor John fulfilled Badego's final wishes. He delivered the message to his family and continued to share Badego's story far and wide. The tale of Badego's rise and fall became a powerful warning against the dangers of greed and the false promises of easy wealth. Though Badego's life ended in tragedy, his story lived on as a beacon of caution and hope, a stark reminder of the consequences of poor choices and the possibility of redemption, even in the darkest of times.